Tech Bros Productions presents Deer Run Trail by David R. Lewis, as performed by the author. Prologue. I never did really meet old Arliss Hyatt as much as I just come up on him. I found him, actually, laying in a dry, wet-weather creek bed in Osage County where he'd drug himself after one of them Duncan brothers had shot him. They took his wagon, riding horse, and team of mules and left him for dead. I reckon there was a time or two when he'd been sorry they hadn't gone ahead and finished the job. Judging by the tracks, he'd drug himself a fair ways to get down into that creek bed and out of the sun. It was terrible hot for early May and unusual dusty, too. It was the buzzards that made me take notice and find where he'd been knocked off his wagon. I ain't real good at reading sign, but it didn't take no Injun to tell pretty much what had happened. I seen where his body had hit and how the ground was kindly scuffed up and clotted with blood where they'd kicked him around some afore they left him laying there and run off with his wagon and stock. He warn't no spring chicken, and he'd been awful used. First I thought he was dead, there was so much blood and all, but he warn't. He'd been shot through the left side of his neck, in and out, and grazed heavy on the left side of his head down low enough toward his ear that a little bit of it had been cut off the top. Heads bleed a lot, and there was so much blood all over his head and face and neck and on his shirt that them Duncan brothers must have thought he was a gone beaver. I took his shirt off him to see, but I couldn't find him shot nowheres else. He was bruised up quite a bit on his back and chest. I reckon they'd stomped on him. I cleaned him up a little bit with what water I could spare and give him a sip or two slow-like so he wouldn't choke, but it just run into his mouth and right out again. I covered his neck and the side of his head up with my bandana to keep the flies off and poured on some of a little dab of whiskey I still had and left him alone. Night come on and I built a small fire and ate some biscuits I had with me. I didn't mean to, but I drifted off and he woke me up screaming and shaking quite a bit. It didn't last long and he was out again, but this time it seemed more like he was sleeping instead of dying. That's when I figured he might make it. I give him a little more water and it ran down his throat. That's when I decided he was one tough son of a bitch.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?